pilot episode of the Purge podcast featuring Red Thor, Big Garcy. Here he is. This is our first one, man. So we're excited to get this going. We've been talking about it for a long time. This is going to be a sports podcast. So um, a lot of what we're talking about here is going to be recorded and posted on YouTube, Twitter. So look for those blasts. We'll have some clips on TikTok. We're gonna break down a lot of the happenings in the sports world, primarily football. So we got the draft coming up. We are going to do a mock draft. That'll be cool. We got a segment, our featured segment of the podcast called the Louisiana Rub. So the Louisiana Rub is going to be Garcy, basically talking about every team in the NFL and two players. Number one, the most underrated player in their franchise history, and number two, the most underrated. So it's probably going to rub you guys the wrong way, but that's what we're here to do, man. We're here to create the friction, make some noise, and yeah, make sure you guys look it up on all platforms. So we'll keep you guys posted on where that's going to be. But the first thing, Garcia, I kind of just wanted to give the people a little bit of an introduction. Um, you know, a little bit about ourselves. I guess I could go first
Sounds
since I'm
good.
already talking.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm a big gamer. Um, my gamer tag is Blue Purge. Obviously, as you guys can see on the graphic right here. Um, really something about me. I'm a huge Cowboys fan. So y'all are probably gonna either love me or hate me. I mean, you can see by the Dion jersey, the Dak and Zeke right there. Like, it's around. That's okay. But I'm a Cowboys fan. That's an honest Cowboys fan. Like, if Dak, sucks in a playoff run, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna be critical about it. So you guys will come to know that about me. My favorite color is blue. I did play football for over a decade, played Division I football, and then played semi-pro. So, yeah, played Halo professionally. Um, I'm, one of the founders of Purge Gaming. So, kind of a cool thing. Gaming community we host tournaments every week. We'll talk about that. We have top 10 clips edited by Garci. We got a lot of great, cool members in our community. They'll probably be guest speakers on the podcast. So, um, yeah, a lot of cool things coming your way. But yeah, Garci, tell the people a little bit about you. Show them
So,
on your sexy bun, maybe. I don't know.
so my name's Devin Garcy. A lot of people just kind of refer to me as Garcy, or AKA Mambo Purge. Been in the Purge community for a few years now. Like Griff said, I kind of do the social media handling for all aspects of Purge Gaming. We're on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, everything like that. So, if you want to kind of stay up to date, go follow those platforms, join our Discord. We'd love to have you around. I live in Louisiana, kind of why we call it Louisiana Rub. It's gonna be a fun segment. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited about everything we're gonna bring to you. I'm looking forward to a lot of it, man. And I'm a big gamer as well. Not as much as I was in the past. Now that I'm a dad, but I still love to get down every night, whether it's the finals, Madden, Rocket League, things like that. So um, I'm just really excited for what we got really coming down this turnpike for y'all, man. I think it's gonna be some exciting things.
Absolutely. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us, man. Again, this podcast is going to be posted on iTunes. We'll have it probably on a few different formats, which will be cool. I don't know if y'all can hear Garcia here in the actual stream, but we're gonna post the podcast and encourage y'all to go out and listen. So um, yeah, kind of the first thing that I wanted to do is jump into the happenings around the community, and then we will, jump into the Louisiana Rub. So as we're jumping into the happenings here, I'm going to share my screen so that y'all can see. Um, let's see if it lets me. Not letting me. Interessante. A little bit of technical difficulties, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, a couple of cool things that are happening. So we have tournaments coming up. This Friday we have a 2v2 tournament. So if you play games, you're into that, y'all can join. It's a random wheel spin. So Friday, about an hour before the tournament, we get everybody together. We spin a wheel. We match up teams that they play in the tournament. Saturday, new MLB game. We're kicking off our first MLB tournament. So that's going to be 1v1 head to head, as there's no kind of 2v2 or 3v3 platform. So that'll be cool. Um, Garcia, you got to put your mouth thing down because we can't hear you.
I had myself muted for the fact of we had a purge people calling me on my phone about your stream.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
okay. Um, so yeah, we got those tournaments coming up, and then Sunday's going to be Call of Duty S&D. So Call of Duty S&D. So those are coming up. If you guys are huge gamers and you join our Discord, the Purge Gaming Discord, we'll have that information on the podcast. But that's going to be you guys can create clips, submit them in the Discord. We are creating a top 10 for the community every month, and then every week we have a top 10 for the Purge gamers that are featured. So that's cool. And then we'll be blasting on Twitter when the podcasts go live, the tournaments go live, all those types of things. So we're here, we're around. Our vision is to be the biggest gaming community in the world. So yeah, that's kind of cool. But we're going to jump in and spend about 20 minutes here into our featured segment. Garcia's got slides made. I'm freaking excited. But without further ado, it's time for the Louisiana Rub. So the Louisiana Rub, hit the graphic.
Welcome to our very first segment of the Louisiana Rub. And as Griff kind of explained earlier, it might just rub you the wrong way. And this first one is really going to hurt me, Griff. This first one, it's really going to hurt my soul to say it. But we're going to start off with both of our favorite teams, the Dallas Cowboys. And we're going to hit up the most overall or overrated person in what I feel in Cowboys probably recent history, as far as all of us can probably remember in recent memory, because we talk about him with his just such a monster personality that he had on and off the field, the way he loved to talk. And you kind of think about number 88, Des Bryant, as a great Cowboy, but Garcia's here to tell you why he just doesn't quite measure up. All right, so let's bring up these stats. So we got it from 2010 here all the way to 2020 when he last played. And you're going to see here, guys, that he only had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards receiving. And for somebody that is quote-unquote considered maybe a Cowboys great or a Cowboys legend, I just don't think that measures up to Cowboy fans or Cowboys organization expectations of a great. He's part of the 88 club because he had a special talent, but he just was not consistent. All right. And I know it's going to make y'all mad, but I mean, I love Des Bryant as much as anybody, but the stats here kind of speak for themselves, guys. He ended his career with only 7,506 yards receiving. Now, he did have 75 touchdowns, but that's because he was a great red zone target. And you can be mad at me, and I can be mad at myself, but at the end of the day, Dez only had 3 seasons out of a 10-year career where he went over 1,000 yards. And when you think about some of the quote-unquote legendary receivers or great receivers, that, especially the young kids like to bring up, like a Antonio Brown, how many seasons in a row did he go over 1,000? Look at Lamb now, going into his 3rd year. He's already got 2 seasons in a row over 1,000. He's got such a career ahead of him that he's already on pace to destroy Dez in every statistical matter of the matter. You know, it's rough to say, but Des Bryant, you are.
So let me ask you this: where do you think people have Des Bryant ranked? So first of all, kind of want to give you guys the format. So we're going to do 2 teams every week. we'll do a division every 2 weeks. So we're starting with the NFC East. We do Commanders, Cowboys, and then we'll do the Giants, Eagles next week, and then we'll move on to a different division. So we're starting with Dez for the Cowboys. Um, but where do you think people have Dez rated all time as far as receivers?
In just a Cowboys facet or all time NFL? Because
Yeah, I think it's both sides. To talk about both, where do you?
okay, well,
I've heard people say Dez is a top 20 receiver all time. He really doesn't have the statistics from a yard standpoint. He had a ton of touchdowns, but where would you put him all time? And then where would you put him in Dallas history?
in Dallas history, he might make top 10 Dallas history. You know,
You
but
don't think he's top five?
probably not even top 5 if you just consider the lack of consistency. He only had 3 good years where he was quote unquote dominant. And if you're going to be an all-time great in a franchise such as the Cowboys or the Yankees or things of those matters, I think you have to have your prime has to be longer than 3 years, and let's face it, his prime was only 3.
So who are the top five receivers in Cowboys history? If we're just going that direction,
It's real tough when you think about everybody that's ever played for them. But I think at the top of the list for everybody, just if you're being a football IQ and just fan of the game and not kind of just playing off of the Dez hype that we had behind him. Because I mean, as a Cowboys fans, we all know we loved him. He brought a lot of energy.
sure, yeah,
But Michael Irvin equals number one, as Filibuster here in the chat has pointed out. He's very correct. Michael Irvin is the number one receiver in Cowboys history, and I don't really think you can debate it.
sure.
So,
So Irv's one. Who's two, three, and four then?
I think
Are we going Pearson?
two, you have to put a pass catcher in here as the best, because tight ends are kind of like a receiver at that point, and you got to go Jason Witten, best pass catcher, kind of best on the receiving end of it at all. I mean, obviously Jason Witten's the best tight end to ever play for Dallas, but he's top 5 in this conversation as well.
Hmm.
Jason Witten was that guy, and we talk about, like I went back to earlier, his prime. How long was Jason's prime? Dez's prime was only 3, and that's what it comes down to. It's not the fact of Dez's talent doesn't match up with anybody in Cowboys history. It's his production and his longevity doesn't match.
Sure. Do you think that there maybe just the era we're in that lack of targets could play into why he doesn't have the production of a CD Lamb or the production of a Jason Witten, or what do you?
Well, I mean, you got to think Jason came long before Dez, but he had just a knowledge of the game to know when to sit, know when to break, know when to go a certain way to beat a coverage. The man could look at you and know by your hips whether you're cover 3, whether you're cover 2. Witten had his own option route on almost every play.
Sure.
Dez
So,
came in an
so we're
era with
saying
Romo, though.
Dez's lack of route running is the reason. I feel like Dez is easily top five in Cowboys history. I can see the overrated standpoint of, like, I've heard people throw his name as a Hall of Famer. I
Mm-hmm.
can't put him in the Hall of Fame category because I think, number one, there was no ring involved with him and Romo. Um,
Yeah.
Now I think certain categories, like as a red zone target, as a jump ball guy, he was special. But I don't know if there's any time that you could put him in the Hall of Fame. And a lot of people have Calvin Johnson as a top 5 receiver all time, and if you look statistically, he's really not even top 12. Because I feel like he's kind of in that mold, another guy.
Yeah, and I mean, look, here's the thing: is it's not like Dez came up in the league where we weren't throwing the ball. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
he still had Tony Romo back there throwing for 4,500 yards, 4,000 yards, 3,500 yards, attempting all these passes. And there, let's not forget that when Dez was in his quote unquote prime for those 3 years, our offense was really good, but our defense was terrible. So we threw the ball a lot. I mean, you don't remember the game where we went and we lost to Denver at home, but Romo put up 48? Our defense was
Right.
terrible. We threw that ball a lot. And Dez, if you
Right.
think back to the receiving core with Dez, if Dez went out, who else was it? It's not like he was surrounded by just a great number two, a great number three. Yeah, Jason Witten was on those teams, but who outside of Dez was really Terrence Williams? So why wasn't Dez getting the targets? He was getting the targets. It's just the fact of the matter is his prime was not long enough to subject him to all the hype that we put behind him.
So we're going top five, and I want your list now because we're saying Dez is overrated. I do agree to an extent. We've got Irv at one, Drew Pearson at two. Who's three, four, and
Well,
five for you?
I've got Witten at two because I'm putting Witten into this because of how well
Okay.
he received. So Witten for me is two. Drew Pearson's gonna be three. Okay, and this one's gonna really piss some people off because he didn't play for us as long. But
Terrell Owens.
Terrell Owens at number four.
Shit.
So, but if you just think
So
about,
you have T.O. over Dez.
and I do, and because
Is
his prime
Dez
was
at
longer,
five?
I think you can
Yeah.
make an
Well,
argument for Dez at
T.O.'s prime
five.
was insane.
Yeah, and if Dez's prime was insane, we probably won't have this conversation. But off of pure talent, you could make an argument for Dez to be five. You could, and I couldn't sit here and argue it. But
So let me ask you that. Can you pull up the stats graphic? Can you pull up the stats graphic?
mm-hmm, it's up. What would you like to see or hear?
So we're looking at the stats here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everyone here in my stream, if you're in Mambo's stream, you can see it. This podcast will be posted, so just keep an eye out for that, and you'll get the total thing here. Des Bryant had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards, 2012, 2013, 2014. And it looks like he went over 1,200 yards 3 times. So he went over 1,200 yards 3 times. He had 10 receiving touchdowns in those same 3 years. So 2012 to 2014, he had Pro Bowl years. Other than that, he only went over 800 yards twice, 2011 and then 2017, which was his last full year before he got hurt. So do you think that we as football fans get obsessed with the potential of Dez? You see the highlight catches, the one-handed taking a slant 60 yards to the crib against the Saints, and we're just kind of infatuated with those highlights to where we maybe put him above I don't know, a Drew Pearson or a Jason Witten when in reality he was kind of just had a shorter prime. Is that
I
what
think
we're
it comes
saying?
down to Dez was so loud. He was so just boom. It's Dez Bryant. It's the X.
Yeah.
That's kind of what goes over in your head, and then you sit back and you look at the stats and that last year when he only recorded 838 yards in 2017, he was healthy. He played all 16 games. And then we cut him. And then he goes to New Orleans, and what's he do in his first practice? He blows his Achilles.
He gets hurt.
And then he sits
Yeah.
out a year. And then he signs for Baltimore and plays for 6 games and only gets 2 touchdowns in 6 games. And you know why? Because he didn't play a snap between 2017, from the end of the 2017 season until midway through the 2020 season. His prime wasn't long enough to subjectify him to be an all-time great in Cowboys history. I loved him. I loved watching him. But his prime wasn't long enough. I think what we loved and what we think about is those 3 years because how dominant those 3 years were. But at the end of the day, it was only 3 seasons. CeeDee
Sure.
Lamb's coming off of back-to-back seasons that started like Dez's stretch. And if he has another one coming up this next season, you're going to have a lot of chatter about CeeDee Lamb being better than Dez Bryant because he's already a better route runner. He's better with the ball in his hands. The only thing that Dez Bryant at this point in CeeDee Lamb's career, that Dez Bryant did better at that point in his career, return punts and catch a jump ball. And I've seen Lamb go over the middle and get smacked and hold on to a ball. You got one more season of CeeDee and putting out like he has. And CeeDee Lamb takes Dez Bryant out of the top 5 in Cowboys receiving.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's move on to the most underrated player in Cowboys history, and go ahead and I know you were excited for this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to introduce
All
who's your
right.
guy,
So, sticking with the Cowboys here, my underrated player in Cowboys history, and he might even be one of the top 5 to 10 underrated players in NFL history. Okay, is the
hmm.
one, the only, the safety, Darren Woodson. And
Darren Woodson.
let's think about this now before the fans go crazy or the comment section starts blowing up about it. Darren Woodson, as I'm about to show you now, statistically, in less games, had a better career than somebody who we all consider, or a lot of the media considers, to be one of the best safeties to play the game, probably a top 10 safety. He's also a GM now for the 49ers, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he has his jacket.
Ooh, you're saying he's better than John Lynch?
Well, let's look at the stats here. John Lynch played 224 games compared to Darren Woodson's 178. John Lynch had 26 interceptions in his career. Darren Woodson has 23 in almost 70 less games.
Wow.
Woodson also took 2 to the
Wow.
house. Lynch never did. 13 sacks compared to 11 sacks. And this is where it really gets crazy. 727 solo tackles for John Lynch in 224 games. Darren Woodson had 639 in 170 in only 178 games. And here's the thing. You want to talk about bowls? Darren Woodson won 3. Lynch won 1. Darren Woodson was a 3-time All-Pro safety, 5-time Pro Bowler. But this man is not in the Hall of Fame, nor does he get the recognition he deserves. How in the world does a man control the back end of the defense of the 90s for the Cowboys and won 3 Super Bowls, and he's not in the Hall of Fame? I don't understand it. And to me, every single year he's on the ballot, and somehow every single year he doesn't make it. It's the biggest robbery in sports to me right now. This man deserves his flowers, and nobody
So
on God's green earth can tell me it's different.
where would you put a Darren Woodson top 10 safeties all time? Is he top 10? Is he even top 10?
Well, that's a really good question. And if you look at his production and the things that he did for his team with 3 Super Bowls, Griff, if this was a quarterback with 3 Super Bowls, would we even be debating if he was top 10?
No, if you got, well, unless you're the blonde bomber of the Steelers and you got 4. Like
Yeah.
I think obviously, so
But
Eli
outside of
Manning's
Terry
got
Bradshaw
2.
getting carried by the steel curtain,
Yeah.
if you were or any other position, you had 3 Super Bowls. Would they even contest
No,
you being in the
but
top 10?
well, here's the thing though. I think there's layers to the onion. We can't. I mean, I disagree on this. I don't think Super Bowls is a good um, barometer for the safety position. Like, how much impact on the game did safety have in that area? I mean, I'm not saying it didn't have an impact, right? But it's not. We're not touching the ball every play. Darren Woodson's not touching the ball every play. Obviously, Darren Woodson, huge um, part of those Super Bowl teams. But we're not going to sit here and say that he did as much as Patrick Mahomes has done for his 3 rings, right? Like, you just don't get that type of impact from the safety position. So there's there. I
You
mean, was he
don't.
just the?
You don't, but at the same time, we're talking about the NFL and their quote unquote criteria for Hall of Famers, and it's always, well, has he won a ring? Was he a world champion? The man was a champion 3 times, and he's not even discussed when the top 10 safeties come out, or top 15, or top 20, or a Hall of Famer. There's no way on God's green earth that Darren Woodson should not have a gold jacket and a bronze statue of his head inside of Canton, Ohio right now.
Sure. Let me ask you. So, okay, Darren, I don't know. Like, I would have to go back and look at the impact he had. But where would you put a Darren Woodson in your hierarchy? Like, obviously, we talk about Troy Pauly, we talk about Ed Reed, we talk
2 of the
about Ronnie
greatest.
Lott. Yeah, so there's 3 there. Everyone likes to talk about John Lynch.
Darren
Brian
Woodson was better
Dawkins
than
is up there.
Darren Woodson was better than John Lynch, and I just proved it.
Fair. But where does Darren fall then among these? These
You
guys all
could
have gold jackets. Where are we?
you could easily put Darren Woodson top 10 as far as production and team success, because at the end of the day, football is a team sport. And in the 90s, defenses kind of ruled the world. It was a running kind of facilitation, okay? And this man came up and would hit. He had almost 700 tackles. So he's less than 100 tackles away from having the same amount as John Lynch, and John Lynch played 60, almost 70 more games. And an
Sure.
NFL safety is at least going to average 2 to 3 tackles a game, especially in that day.
Right.
Okay. He also forced 11 fumbles and had 23 interceptions and returned some of those for touchdowns. He controlled the back end of that Dallas's defense, and the fact that the only person from those defenses you really hear talked about is old Neon Dion for great reason. Okay, it's Neon Dion and Charles Haley. Where's the rest of the flowers? Where's the flowers for the man who is sliding and adjusting to what he sees coming out of cover 2 to go to a cover 3 to play man, yelling down at the linebackers, hey, we're in trips, there's doubles, there's this, there's that? Why on God's green earth does somebody with the production of Darren Woodson not get the love he deserves? And even inside of their own Cowboys organization, the man's probably the best safety that's ever played for Dallas. And when do you
Yeah.
ever hear a Cowboys fan's name mention him? Hardly ever, unless they're a real, true, hardcore fan, because he's not talked about enough. So all these young bucks who think they know football have no idea who Darren Woodson is. And if that's you watching this podcast, do yourself a favor. Go watch his highlights and realize that this man is a Hall of Famer, and he's being robbed every single day. And it's an injustice to football, and it's an injustice to Darren Woodson.
I need to know where you put him all time. What's the number? I need a number. Everybody wants to hear a number.
I put him 6.
Jesus.
I put him 6 all time. I put him 6 because I feel that strongly about this man. That if somebody on that committee would wake up and put him into the Hall of Fame, maybe then NFL Network and NFL and ESPN and everybody would wake up and be like, "You're right, Darren Woodson was pretty damn good."
Well, so I guess we can bring rings into other conversations, not just the quarterback debate. So, all right. I don't think I could put him as high as 6.
That's
I would
fine.
have to probably do a hierarchy.
Name,
I think
name your
he
safeties
falls in the
better.
12 to. Okay, so for me, I got to go Ronnie.
Just
I
a
got to go
hitter,
Ed Reed.
but okay. Ed Reed's the best safety of all time. It's not debatable.
I agree with that. Troy Polamalu,
An absolute savage.
Brian Dawkins,
Shorter prime, but okay.
shorter prime. I think Dawkins, for me, when you played Brian Dawkins, there was fear.
Oh yeah.
There
Weapon
was,
X was a different animal for sure. I just wish we could have seen him play at a higher level for longer.
Did I say Troy Polamalu?
Yeah, you did. You said Ed, Troy, Dawkins. You put the hitman Ronnie Lott on there. And I mean, that's cool. But if he played for anybody other than San Francisco, do we know who Ronnie Lott is?
Where do we, I mean, and I don't know the statistic comparison, but somebody like a Steve Atwater, Paul Krause. Paul Krause has the most interceptions ever as a ball hawk. Different era, right?
He's very ahead of his time. Kind of like Night Train Lane was as far as ball hawking abilities go back in those days.
So I think those guys for me live higher than Woodson. I think 6 is crazy to say. I'm going to be honest with you. I
barely
think
named
6 is
six that you think are
fucking
better than
crazy.
him. 6 is accurate. 6 is accurate. And if people would wake up and do their homework, it's there.
If you're going off of rings, Woodson
Not
has an
ju-
argument. I just think there were more impactful. Earl Thomas, to me, was a defensive player of the year caliber guy that he has a ring, could have had 2 if we gave
Run
the
the ball.
fucking ball to Marshawn
Yeah,
Lynch.
run the ball.
But Earl to me was a guy that controlled one of the best defenses ever in the
He
Legion of
also
Boom.
he also was part of one of the best safety tandems ever. So I really don't know how I feel about that when you have a future Hall of Famer such as Bam Bam Cam lining up opposite of you.
No, but we can't. Jerry Rice played with two Hall of Famers at quarterback. We're not going to say he wasn't the greatest receiver because we're not going to
Well, of
indict
course
him
not,
for who he
because they're not
played
playing
with.
the same position and they're not having to trust each other on halves of the field.
No,
Go
but I
go
think you
back
got
and
to
watch
trust.
some go back and watch some of Woodson's highlights and watch him rotate from the right hash all the way to the left hash because his partner would sell him, as the kids would say these
I
days.
I
And if you think
think
Eric Berry's better than fucking Darren Woodson, I need you to really go watch some tape.
Eric was dynamic for a while until he got like God bless you, Eric. Until the leukemia hit Eric's soul and robbed him of probably four more MV like defensive player of the year caliber seasons. But we can't put Darren Woodson ahead of Paul Krause, right? That's fucking crazy, isn't
Another,
it?
it might be another underrated player that doesn't get talked about enough coming down the pike. Spoiler alert.
But would you agree with me? We can't. Can for me, Darren lives in the 10 to 12 range.
And
I
that's
do think he's
fine.
a Hall of Famer. I'll agree with you on Hall of Famer. I think putting Darren at 6 is outlandish to
And maybe
me.
that's just the cowboy in me, baby. Maybe it just fires me up so bad that he's not in the Hall of Fame that I throw my number out there because I'm just that strong on the fact this man deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The fact that he's
But
not, it's
Kenny,
crazy.
to me, Ken Houston was better. I think Ken was a guy who you could play man to man coverage with Ken. Not saying Darren couldn't do that. I think Ken was a guy who would come in and enforce, and he was a ball hawk. I know Belichick and the All Decade team had Ken in the 40 range as greatest player ever. We didn't mention Ken yet. Um, but to me, Darren lists 10 to 12. That's where I would have him. So,
And that's reasonable, but you know what? It's not reasonable until he's voted into the Hall of Fame or is talked about more or gets his flowers or somebody just admits that this man was so much better than what all you kids remember. And it's really a shame that you haven't been able to get just schooled on the safety that is Darren Woodson.
I want to move us on to the most overrated player in Commanders history, formerly the Redskins. I don't know if we're allowed to say that. I'm going
I
to
don't
throw it
know.
out here.
That might be
If
taboo.
you don't like it, throw it back.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, well, so Louisiana Rub Commanders.
All right.
Who are
So
we rubbing for the Commanders?
if you're a Washington fan, number one, I'm sorry because you're a Washington fan and all you know is poverty and disappointment in stadiums where shit pipes burst on people. Okay. But number two, this is going to really rub you the wrong way because all of y'all really think this man was greater than sliced bread. And I'm here to tell you now that Joe Theismann was overrated and on the verge of being hot garbage. If you take his one ring away where his defense pretty much carried it, Joe Theismann doesn't even belong in the Hall of Fame.
Where do we? Joe Theismann is interesting to me because when you talk about success as a commander, you look at two guys. For me, you're looking at Theismann and you're really looking at Doug Williams, right? Who was the first black quarterback? Shout out Big Dougie Fresh. Um, but they won Super Bowls for the Commanders on the back of Big John Riggins. Why do you feel like Theismann was overrated? I think if you're a Commander fan, you're saying this was one of two guys to lead us to the promised land, right? Is he overrated from a standpoint of all time quarterbacks when we talk about Joe, or is he rated from you feel like in Commander's history he's held in too high regard?
I think number one, they kind of probably hold him in too high regards as far as quarterbacks in general. Um, Even though kids these days and age probably only remember him for getting his leg snapped by Lawrence Taylor. Hashtag shout out to the blind side. Um, But when you look at the stats, Griff, the man played from 74 to 1985 when Lawrence Taylor broke him in half, which is crazy because if you look at the history of that field, two different quarterbacks exactly 20 years apart in the same part of the field broke the same exact leg in the same exact spot and pretty much ended both their careers. They say history repeats itself. If you're an NFL quarterback, do yourself a favor. Present or future, do not go to Washington because chances are you're going to snap your leg in a very gruesome accident. But he played for 11 years. And Griff, if I told you just blindly that a quarterback played for 11 years, in 6 of those 11 seasons he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, would you put him in the Hall of Fame?
No. No, I don't think you can.
Well, guess what? That's what Joe Theismann did. In 75, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. 76, 8 and 10. 77, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 78, 13 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. And then he had 2 years where he finally kind of got above the hump. But even in 1980, he had 17 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Then he comes back in 81, throws 20 picks to 19 touchdowns. How on earth is this man considered, even for Washington standards, an all-time great? 6 of his 11 years at the quarterback position, the most pivotal position in football, you hurt your team more than you help them.
So, I mean, looking at his record, right? Theismann drafted in 74, didn't play 74, 75, 76, and then in 77, I'm sorry, no, in 76 he went 3-2 as a starter. 77 4-2, 78 he went 7-7, and then he had a winning record in 79 10-6. But he only had 3 winning seasons. 1982 he only played 9 games, I guess. He got hurt probably. 83 14-2. So the 83 season was his highlight. 14-2, 60% completion. So
yeah.
As he's probably considered the best quarterback in Commanders history, where would we put him on the spectrum of all-time quarterbacks? Is he even in the top 20?
Not even top 50. I can tell you right now, in his short, quote-unquote, lived career in Washington, Kirk Cousins was a better quarterback than Joe Theismann.
You think Kirk Cousins is better than Joe without a ring?
All time? Yeah.
Without 2 playoff wins to his name.
If you gave me prime Theismann and prime Cousins, I'm taking Cousins 10 out of 10 times.
But do we think? I mean,
are we
Kirk
focused Cousins on that 83 team, and he's going to win a Super Bowl too, and he probably goes 16-0 instead of 14-2.
Are we underrating though, like the clutch factor of Kurt? Like, is there? Like, I haven't seen Kurt win big games one, and I think there was a thing about Theismann that people felt in the locker room that he was going to win big games when they got to the playoffs. I'm not saying he's putting up the statistics, but if you're a Commanders fan and you have these fond memories of him, like he took them. I mean, where you're talking about the Niners team, the Cowboys teams were deep. Like he had to beat good teams in that run. Are we maybe focused too much on the touchdown interception ratio?
The Cowboys were ass in the early '80s when he had his good spout there. He never had to play against the triplets, and when Dallas was kind of deep again, because we forget that the '80s were kind of a little bit of a dark period for Dallas at times because they went from Staubach to Tony Romo 1.0 and Danny White, Mr. Can't Win a Big Game, and yes, it's not like he was playing the Doomsday Defense and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irving and Randall Cunningham and Reggie White, and it's not like he had those guys out there. The Giants were decent, but he won in '83. And here's the thing: one good year. How many quarterbacks can have one good year and then fall off and don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Here's a stat I'm going to point out for you.
You want to know?
Joe Theismann in the playoffs
Mm-hmm.
6-4.
That's awesome. You know who else has a Super Bowl, Griff? The quarterback for the
Mhm.
Ravens when Ray Lewis and them were running the show. Do you remember his name?
You talking Trent Dilfer? We got a
Oh
Trent
my
Dilfer
God,
sighting on the
Trent
cast.
Dilfer! Oh my God, Trent Dilfer's got the same amount of rings as Joe Theismann. Griff, does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
But we
Ah!
can't. We're not comparing that Ravens defense to that Commanders defense, right?
I mean, that Ravens defense was historically great. I don't think you can really almost compare them to anybody. But my point is, he had one good year where they went to the Super Bowl, and good for him for getting them through it. But can we go back and look at how tough was the competition that year? Who was hurt? Who was out? Who was down? Who was out?
All right, I'm going to point out his stats in playoff games. 2 of his losses, he didn't play. Okay, so as a starter, Joe Theismann is 6-2 in the playoffs. Check this out. Joe Theismann, first start, NFC wildcard versus Detroit, Barry Sanders, 14 of 19, 73.7 completion percentage, 210 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. First playoff start. Okay. Same year, NFC divisional round, they play Minnesota. 17 of 23, 73.9 completion percentage, 213 yards, 9.3 a clip, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 113 rating. His first playoff game, the one I mentioned before, 149.1 rating. 149. I I just the man balled out. Almost dropped my mic there. The man balled out in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He balled out in the playoffs. Here's his third game, okay? Versus Dallas. He wins the game 12 of 20, 60% completion, 150, one tub, 0 interceptions, 75.1 rating. Okay. Start number 4 versus the Rams the following year in the divisional. They got a first round bye, 18 of 23, 78.3%, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. I mean, I think for me, the greatness of Theismann was his ability in critical games to absolutely show up. And we like to talk about the stats. Different era. I don't think Joe was asked to drop back. He was never Peyton Manning. He's not. He wasn't Johnny Unitas.
And
But the
why do you
guy
throw so many
fucking.
fucking picks? If it was a
I mean,
different era
in
and
the
he didn't
regular
drop back,
season.
I mean, that man threw 20 picks in the 70s. How
But
hard was
can
that
we
to do?
say what would you rather have? Do you want a guy who in the regular season is subpar, aka the Eli Manning of the Commanders, or a guy who right,
And Eli
or a
balled out in
guy
the
who
playoffs,
balls
too.
out in the fucking regular season and then gets to the playoffs and he's a different person. He fucking Jackal and Hyde.
Here's what I
I
need
need
for you to be an all-time great or to be considered or you're even in the Hall of Fame off of one Super Bowl. Yeah, cool. You went fucking 6-2 in the playoffs. But if you weren't such dog shit in the regular season, how many more playoff chances would you have had?
sure, no,
He's
that's
not a
fair, but
Hall of Fame
also
quarterback.
after he started 6-2, he broke his leg in half. Gruesome injury.
Shitty
Is
deal.
it fair to say that when Theismann, who only played 9 years, he started 7 years.
Mm-hmm. You think he was taken
That
too
he
soon?
may have just been entering his prime.
Might have
I
just
mean,
been
we
entering
talk about
his
Peyton Manning
football
won his
IQ
first bowl.
prime, like Romo, and
I
then his
just,
body gave out.
I'm just saying. I think Joe. I think we're holding Joe. I mean, what more? We talk about Woodson with the rings aspect. Joe at the quarterback position, and I hate the Commanders, poverty franchise, but this man took poverty to a 5-star restaurant and wined and dined.
They weren't poverty yet, but the playoff wins are great. He was 6-2 out of 8 chances. That's cool. But you're not a Hall of Famer off of 6 playoff wins. You're not a Hall of Famer throwing 6 seasons worth of interceptions more than touchdowns. And you're not a Hall of Fame quarterback, if he played any time in recent memory or was getting voted on by the committee that's in now, Joe Theismann never makes it, and nobody can change my mind.
Crazy. It's crazy. All the man did was win in big spots, just getting shit on by Red Thor
He
over
only
here.
had he only had 6 wins in big spots, but that's cool. I've got a 28-year-old right now who's got 15 wins in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the GO conversation,
Yeah,
so that's a little different.
Theismann's not even top 50 all time, so why the hell is he a fucking Hall of Famer?
I'm saying Theismann may be in the 20 to 25 range.
Of dog shit.
It's crazy. I don't know what more you want from the man.
Not to
Okay.
throw 20
Well,
interceptions in the 70s. In the
I mean,
70s.
it could have been worse. He could have been trying to eat a dub, throwing 30 interceptions.
Let's not bring famous Jameis
Jameis
into
Winston.
this podcast. That
You know
man,
what I mean?
look, we're not stealing crab
Can
legs
I
and
ask you
not
this?
eating W's on the set right now, okay?
Would you take Joe Theismann or Eli Manning?
You're going to really make me pick between two divisional rivals. I'll take Eli.
Yeah. Why?
Why? Because he at least did better in the regular season than Joe Theismann and got his team a chance to get there. Yes, he had the interceptions just like Theismann.
But how? He was tied in the regular season.
Yeah, but guess what?
He had as many losses as wins.
But guess what?
And a better defense.
And a better defense. But what did you just give me? Your defense for Joe Theismann? He played really good in big spots. And Eli Manning, just when he got to the playoffs, was a different Eli, right? Just like Joe was a different Joe when he got to the playoffs, Griff. Eli's got 2. Why would I take the quarterback with 2 of them? Oh.
Let me ask you, before we move on, I just want to just one more hypothetical for you. Joe Theismann never breaks his leg. Mm-hmm. He has 2 rings.
He wouldn't
yes
get
or no?
No.
No, he wouldn't get another one?
He wouldn't get another one. No. He was already, what? When he broke his leg, because he came in the league, Griff, at 25 years old. So he was already 35, 36 when he snapped his leg. No, it was done. He wasn't, in those times, those quarterbacks weren't lasting until they're 38, 40 years old. He was probably in the last leg or year or 2 of his career to begin with before Lawrence Taylor put him out to the woodshed.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, move on here. That was a good one. I think you could be a little less I don't know, man. I like Joe Theismann, man. He's a good guy. I feel bad for him. That leg snap is brutal.
You can be a good guy and still not deserve to be a Hall of Famer.
I'd put him in. All right, who's the most underrated players in Commanders history?
All right, Griff. This one for the underrated player in Commanders history was really not all that hard for me to come by. Because the man was just an embodiment of a pro, whether you like the Commanders or hate them like I do. And all he did was make big hits, big plays, and consistently show up on Sundays. And that is the one, the only London Fletcher. Now,
it's a name.
It is. And here's the thing. The man had 23 interceptions as a middle linebacker. All right. He had 2 pick sixes as a linebacker. He had over 1,300 solo tackles, 19 forced fumbles, and 12 fumble recoveries in his career. Okay. And just to give you a kind of keepsake of what that means is, one of the linebackers we consider to be the greatest of all time, or one of the great linebackers of all time, is Ray Lewis. And nobody's ever going to dispute that, right? Ray Lewis is probably one of the best linebackers to ever play.
If not the best.
If not the best. And London Fletcher's stats are not far off from Ray Lewis. But yet, Ray Lewis had 12 Pro Bowls, 10 All-Pros, 2 AP Defensive Player of the Year awards, and a Super Bowl MVP. But because he played for the Redskins at the time, now the Commanders, poor London Fletcher just didn't get the love that he deserved. He only had 4 Pro Bowl nods. How do you have the statistics that this man has? And mind you, that the best ability is what, Griff? Availability. The man hardly ever missed. I think at one point he was at like 200 games straight as a middle linebacker. That's insane. He played all the time, hardly ever missed, and only gets 4 Pro Bowl nods and only 2 All Pros. Okay, and his stats are up there with some of the quote unquote greats in the linebacker community that have made it to the Hall of Fame. And this man's not even getting put onto the ballot every year. Not even getting put on the ballot. So nobody's even mentioning this man's name inside of those committee meetings.
Something kind of crazy. So I'm looking at the stats here. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 straight seasons of 110 tackles.
That's wild.
Insanity.
How's this man not a Hall of Famer? And I hate you, Washington. I hate you. Just like I hate you, Philadelphia.
Wow.
Just like I hate you, New York. How is London Fletcher not a Hall of Famer?
Wow.
Give this man his flowers. And this is coming from a Cowboys fan. The man deserves it. Look at his stats.
Great.
Look at his production. He doesn't belong anywhere else other than in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on this one. London played in an era where the middle linebacker position was important. He makes all the calls. You don't have the thing in your helmet telling you whatever. I don't think he had like the mental presence of a Ray Lewis. I don't think he invigorated guys like that. Smaller build, London was. He didn't make his first Pro Bowl until he was 15 years in the league in 2009. Then he made 4 straight. So it's kind of like the league figured it out too late. He has a ring with the Rams as a rookie.
Yeah. And
Interesting enough.
But if you go take his stats.
No All Pros.
Dose. According to.
He's got 2 All Pros.
Yeah, 2 All Pros, 4 Pro Bowls. Yes.
My bad. Yeah. So 2 All Pros.
Which probably came in the latter end of his career. Like you said, the league figured him out too late. I just don't understand it. How. If there was a guy right now playing in this league averaging 110 tackles a season for 14 years?
16 years.
16 years. How is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Where would you put London Fletcher in a kind of theoretical ranking? Name just top of your head. Where does London?
As far as middle linebackers all time,
is he an all-time great?
I think you could make.
Or is he just purely underrated?
I think he's obviously purely underrated by the fact that nobody talks about the man. But I mean, if you look at his stats and his production and his longevity, could you not at least make the argument that he's a top 15 middle linebacker?
Sure. I think 15 is a good range.
You know what I'm saying?
Who are your 10?
Oh, man, there's so many. Obviously, Ray Lewis is up there. You got Brian Urlacher. Okay, 2 dogs right off the top of rip. He didn't have as long of a career, obviously, and he kind of hung it up a little too soon, but Patrick Willis was a dog. Mike Singletary, Mike Ditka played tight end. But, when you look back at his stats, the man was built like a shit brick house. Probably could have played it as well. But you got Ray, you got Brian, you got Mike Singletary, you got Patrick Willis.
Let's compare him. I mean, can you pull that list up again? Can you compare him to a guy like Patrick Willis, who a lot of people think are top 10, Junior Seau? What is he compared to a Junior Seau, a Ray Nitschke, who a lot of people have 7 to 10 range? Where is London Fletcher on that hierarchy? Because I do think Ray Lewis is up there, Junior Seau. You're talking guys like Zach Thomas is great, Dick Butkus, Mike Ditka, London Bridge is fallen.
He's fallen down.
Where does he go?
Let's see here. Let's go to StatMuse, shall we? Bear with me here for a second. All right. You're going to make me make a whole little source just off of this real fast. I'm not as...
Compare
All
him to
right.
Junior Seau.
Junior
Is that a good
Seau.
name? I don't know.
Let's pull it up. All right, let's see here. Let's just pull up this. See what the old heads are talking about. All right, I'm going to share something with y'all real quick, chat, that I just found that's very interesting off of the NFL stats page that they posted off of Twitter, okay? And you can go look this up for Twitter on yourselves. So we said, what, Ray Lewis, Junior Seau, Patrick Willis, guys like that, right? You know, where does he stack up? Why isn't he talked about? I really don't have an answer why he's not talked about, guys, because when I show you this, it's probably going to blow your minds, okay? And done. So I have it pulled up here for you. Most combined tackles in a career from NFL Stats, a blue check marked, authorized, authenticated page. Most combined tackles in a career in NFL history. Ray Lewis, 2,059. London Fletcher, number 2. 2,039. Junior Seau. Junior Seau, 1,847. Look at that. Is
Number
that
2 in total tackles. He was around the ball.
Around the ball.
He was around the ball.
Consistently, accurately, and most importantly, the man had one hell of a prime. Did we not start off this podcast by saying somebody else's prime just wasn't long enough? And do we think that receiver is as physical in the 2010s to 2017 range as what it was for London Fletcher playing middle linebacker in the early 2000s? Not a chance. But the man was there. His prime and his longevity almost unmatched.
So 2 questions for you right now. Number 1, where does he rank? Is he top 5? Are we sleeping on London that hard? Number 2, why do you think he was underrated? What's the reason? Is it simply because he played for the Commanders?
I think it's, number 1, he played for the Commanders. And like we had started this little segment off of saying they're a poverty franchise. Sorry, Washington. It is what it is. Number 2, majority of America hates Washington. Why? Well, that's where all the politicians are, Griff. And number 3, I don't think London Fletcher kind of met the criteria physically wise as far as height, weight, 40 time that what the NFL like to kind of push out there.
That shouldn't matter. He's making plays.
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't. But why are we pushing a guy like, I'll give you today's instance. Josh Allen's a big physical freak of nature that everybody loves, right? Because he's 6'6", has a good 40 strong arm, this and that. He fits the mold. He fits the picture what the NFL wants to push. So we get Josh Allen pushed down our throats. London Fletcher didn't meet the criteria of what Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher met as far as the NFL's criteria. No, let's not get it twisted, guys. You can be a great player in this league, as London Fletcher proved, and get absolutely just pushed down the drain because the NFL's a popularity contest.
I need to know where you rank him all time. There's no way he's top 5, right?
Stat-wise, how could he not be? Almost like, you'd have to do a deeper dive in this, and maybe we'll make an entire YouTube video, guys. What do you think about, does London Fletcher deserve to be top 10 linebacker of all time?
Top 5 linebackers all time?
Top 5, top 10 of all time? Do we make a video for a rival team to prove why this man deserves his flowers and he's never getting them? Because he's another guy that's never on the ballots. That's never getting his flowers. He's never even talked about when it comes down to the Hall of Fame committees. And if you look at his stats, it's absolutely wild. To be number two all time for combined tackles in a career, and you're not even in the Hall of Fame.
It's incredible. It's an incredible stat. The research here by Red Thor was amazing. I I'm gonna kind of wrap us up on that topic here. So just kind of to put a bow on everything we talked about, Louisiana Rub baby every week. The most underrated and overrated players of each team. We did the Cowboys today, and we did the Redskins slash Commanders. For the Cowboys, we talked about Des Bryant, Darren Woodson, and then for the Commanders, we talked about London Fletcher and Joe Theismann. I think Theismann's underrated, but we decided to go the other way on this one. Um, Appreciate you guys jumping in and giving us a little bit of feedback. Next week, we're going to be doing the Cowboys and the Birdies, the Eagles. So stay tuned for that.
Not the Cowboys,
Um,
Griff. It's gonna be the Giants and the Eagles next week.
Giants and Eagles.
Yeah. As much
My
as I
bad.
love
Giants are
talking
good. I don't know why I
Cowboys
said that.
football,
I'm always thinking about it.
we gotta continue down the road.
Got to continue down the road. You're right. My bad, guys. Giants and Eagles next week. Then we'll probably move on to a different AFC division, give you guys a little bit of flip of the coin. So we appreciate you guys. Before we leave, Garci, we do a top 10 gaming clips. Did you want to share that with everybody? Are we ready to do that?
We can sure as heck try, Griff. You keep putting me on the
Okay.
spot, and I'm not as good at working my Streamlabs as you yet. So you just keep working me over. But I think we can.
It's because
I
we
think
love
we
you.
can make it happen.
I didn't get to see the Louisiana Rub graphic either. How did that? I'm sure I would get to see it. We post very sexual.
I didn't see any comments
Look
in
at
mine
me.
either, but I'm sure my boy Hunter will hit me up later about what I can do to make it a little bit more sexual because he is a absolute dog when it comes to video editing. So I gotta get him to look at it and tell me what to do.
Yeah, guys. So you can on YouTube Purge TTV Gaming. We'll have that video on YouTube for you. This video, it will be on iTunes. We're gonna have it on Spotify. We'll have a few things. We'll kind of let you guys know where that's at. But we'll leave you with this top 10 clips. We make them every week. Kind of show you guys. We get to feature the people in our gaming community, so that's super fun. If we can get it up, and if we can't, oh, here it is. Look at that.
All right, let's see why it's being
Skipping out a little bit.
skipping a little bit. Let's see what happens. Let me pause and play here. Might need to just bit.
May not be able to have it.
Is it still skipping on y'all side now?
Something,
still skipping.
something that we're going to do, guys, in future podcasts. A mock draft. So tune in weeks we're going to be doing a mock draft. We'll continue the Louisiana Rub, obviously. And then, yeah, we want to hear comments, things about that you guys want to hear us talk about. We'll have some guest speakers down the road as well. We're going to probably end up doing a March Madness bracket. So if you want to find out who actually wins the fucking tournament, tune in because I have all the answers. I don't have I have no answers.
Guys, he doesn't know basketball. It's zero chance that he
I know a little
correctly.
basketball.
Let me tell you right now, if Griff correctly guesses a bracket, I'll give everybody in this chat a merchandise hoodie of their choice.
Oh yeah, hey, we got merch now too. I just ordered my sweater from Kayla.
You like that little
It'll
drop?
be great.
You like that little drop? There we go.
That was nice.
Raindrop.
That was nice.
Drop top.
So that's going to actually conclude our pilot edition here of the podcast. Thanks for watching on Twitch. If you guys were here with us, we appreciate the comments. We're not able to interact with you guys all the time. We'll have some guest speakers. We're going to do a mock draft. We may do a position breakdown of the top 5 prospects, running back, receiver, quarterback, probably defensive backs, D line, and all that stuff leading into that as a topic. And then the Louisiana Rub will be every week. So that's going to be a 16-week series. featuring Garcia. Super hot takes. I think the Joe Theismann one was fucking crazy, but loved it. And then London Fletcher, we all got to learn today. I didn't realize how good he was. So tune in for the Rub next week as well. But that's all we got, guys. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you listening. We're gonna have more comment, sub on YouTube. Let us know what you want to hear about too. So we'll keep diving in.
And don't worry,
That's all we
Seven.
got for you guys.
I've got Longhorns quarterback on my to-do list very soon. But you're not going to like where he ends up.
But see you guys next time.
Have a great one.
Adios.